Coming up, not one but two sports injuries at just 15 years old. Meet the young man who put in the work and partnered with experts to get his baseball career back on track. Plus, we have a COVID update for you from Doc Hawk. Is the summer wave finally at its peak? And with new vaccines coming soon, we ask if it makes sense to delay the shot if you've recently been sick. Good morning, I'm Alexis Del Cid in for Jessica Lovell. Welcome to the Morning Medical Update. Just like a tennis player can get tennis elbow, did you know young baseball players can get a little league shoulder? Little league shoulder comes if you're throwing as hard and as often as Cohen Gunn. Something's got to give. Janine Kiesling shows us how the athlete felt his shoulder pop and then dedicated himself to getting back on the mound.
In the small town of Ellenwood, Kansas, just a stone's throw from Great Bend, baseball is more than just a game. It's a way of life. For 16-year-old Cohen Gunn, the diamond has always been his field of dreams, with aspirations of playing ball well beyond the high school battlegrounds.
I'm just going to keep working at it and try to get as best as I can for college.
Cohen Gunn has his eyes fixed on the bigger league of collegiate ball.
Probably since I was 8.
But every athlete knows the path to glory is often littered with hurdles. For Cohen, that first hurdle came crashing down in 8th grade, trying to perfect his pitching with a friend. While stretching his arm's limits in a game of long toss, disaster struck.
It popped.
The pain marking a turning point in his young career.
I couldn't throw.
Hey man, how's it going?
At the mound of his recovery stood Dr. Tom Dagg.
Do you have any pain like back here?
Not just any doctor, but a seasoned sports medicine specialist from the University of Kansas Health System, Great Bend campus, and Cohen's trusted primary care provider.
How about bringing your arm behind you? Yeah, good, and then push out against me. He had little league shoulder, which is basically separation of the growth plate.
Dr. Dagg prescribed a regimen of physical therapy instead of surgery.
You're gonna hold here, you're gonna drop and catch the ball.
Enter Jake Thompson, a physical therapist within the health system and a former college pitcher himself, who knew a thing or two about baseball injuries and Cohen's pitching dreams.
We've been working together for 2 or 3 years now. I have a background in baseball.
Jake went from coaching Cohen on the mound to making sure he could get back to it. Transitioning from coach to healer was seamless.
Anytime we're providing care for patients, there's a big trust factor that goes into it. And when you already have that rapport, you already have that trust.
Cohen's comeback was swift, and he was pitching again before the season's close. However, fate threw another curveball his way during a dodgeball game in PE, resulting in a fall that injured his thumb. Dr. Dagg knew this time surgery was inevitable, and that Cohen was counting on him to get him back in the game. A few months later,
I feel a lot better. I've grown a lot. I've been pitching a lot faster.
Cohen credits Dr. Dagg and Jake for his comeback. They were more than just medical professionals. They were fans in the stands, deeply rooted in the community and cheering Cohen on.
It's a special thing being a part of a smaller community where they'll see us at football games and baseball games.
Joining us now is 16-year-old Cohen Gunn, and right beside him is his mom, Angie, from Ellenwood, Kansas. And also joining us, we have Jake Thompson, the physical therapist who we just saw working with Cohen. Jake is also the regional manager of rehabilitation services for the University of Kansas Health System in Great Bend. Thank you all for being here. It's great to be connected. Cohen, I want to start with you. Take us back first to your shoulder injury because you felt it pop, which sounds ghastly. Did it hurt all the time after that?
No, it was only when I did movement with the shoulder.
Only when it moved. So how long was it until you said something to your mom? Because often kids don't tell their parents when they're injured right away.
It was probably like a week before I told my mom, before it was hurting.
And Angie, what was your reaction to hearing about your son's pain?
Well, we got him checked out as soon as we could, just because the nature of the injury. Of course, we didn't know exactly what it was to begin with. We went to physical therapy first, and then when that didn't work to resolve the issue, then we saw Dr. Dag.
And Cohen, is it true you wound up still playing and pitching a game while you were injured?
Yeah, I did that. I think I pitched 2 or 3 games before I knew it was that bad.
How tough was it? What did it feel like when you would pitch?
So it was just pain in my shoulder, and I couldn't pitch for very long, and I got taken out pretty fast.
So Angie, at this point you already knew Jake because Jake was your son's pitching coach. When did you learn that Jake was also going to be Cohen's physical therapist?
We asked for Jake. There was no doubt that we were going to have him be Cohen's physical therapist, just because we knew him already before this.
Knew him, trusted him, had that relationship already built in, which was talked about during Janine Kiesling's report of that smaller community feel where you know people and you're all connected in some way. Jake, I want to ask you about Cohen's injury, because the first injury, we'll get to the dodgeball injury in a minute. The shoulder injury is nicknamed Little League shoulder. In medical terms, what is Little League shoulder?
So basically what happened was our bones are still developing when you're at a young age like Cohen, right? So the stress from throwing, in his case, it would have been too much volume, too much load early on in the season, kind of getting a little too aggressive with the long toss. It was just too much stress for our bones to handle. And when you're younger, like Cohen was, and still developing, sometimes our bones, in this case, the growth plate can be more susceptible than other structures when we talk about like ligaments or muscles.
So is it a stress fracture on the growth plate?
It can get to that point. It's a stress reaction to the growth plate, yes.
Got it. And in Cohen's case, was there a fracture?
His was not quite to that point yet, but it definitely could have gotten there.
You talked about in your first answer, he was throwing too hard and doing too many long balls. Is there a way is there something that could have prevented his Little League shoulder, or is that just bad luck? It happens to some athletes, doesn't happen to others.
So for him, it would have been just scaling back the volume just a little bit. Essentially, like, he was out playing catch with his good buddy, and there's that competitive edge with just about any athlete trying to throw harder and harder. And so it's essentially just kind of listening to our body and being a little bit more structured when it comes to the first part of a season in terms of getting our arms in shape for the upcoming season.
That would make sense, kind of like pacing your shoulders throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
So what happens if someone doesn't get physical therapy with an injury like that? What would happen to Cohen?
So, I mean, anytime you talk about an injury like this, like, it is an overuse injury. If you just keep kind of going at it, essentially, I mean, you can have long-lasting effects. I mean, it's very possible that somebody that continues to push through this may not be able to play later down the road. And I mean, there's always the susceptibility to actually having a significant fracture. So.
We have some video that we shot during one of your sessions with Cohen. And before we play that, we also want to talk about the second injury that Cohen got playing dodgeball, which every parent is cringing at that, because we know from back in the 70s and 80s that dodgeball was ruthless. For the dodgeball injury, Dr. Tom Dag suspected that Cohen might need surgery. It's called a sterner lesion, when a torn ligament gets caught on by a nearby tendon. It sounds awful. Here's how Dr. Dag described it.
A lot of ligaments will heal on their own just by scarring back together. But the problem with the UCL in the thumb is sometimes that tendon can get in the way. There's actually a tendon that comes through there, the adductor tendon, which allows us to adduct to the thumb, basically move it in, and that tendon can actually get in the way of that ligament from healing.
Kate Cohen, no names, but do you know who threw the ill-fated dodgeball at your thumb?
No, it's because I fell on it.
Oh, a fall. That was
He was going for a
ruthless.
ball and fell.
You were taking that. You're very competitive. You're very competitive. So Cohen needed surgery. Angie, as a mom, what was it like hearing that your son was hurt again?
I was very stressed because it was December and baseball starts in March here. So he worked so hard to get back from his shoulder injury. I was just kind of, because we knew that he had a chance to start, and we were just pretty stressed and hoping that we could get it healed before baseball started.
Was this your first surgery, Cohen?
Yeah, it was my first surgery.
And what was the recovery like?
It felt long for me. And the longest part was sitting out and having to watch people, and I couldn't do anything.
How long? You say it felt long. You're a guy that does not like to wait. So how long was it actually that you had to rest it?
2 or 3 months, I think.
Yeah. 2 or 3 months is a long time. Do you feel like
Yeah.
you're finally back to strength?
Oh yeah, I'm 100% now.
Now, do you feel like you want to play dodgeball again in PE class?
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Poor mom. We do have some great video. What's that?
Yes, poor mom is right. It's always something.
It is. It's always something. We have some really fantastic video we want to show you because Cohen was kind enough to let us bring a camera into one of his sessions with Jake. Jake, you start with hands-on, and it looks like in this part you're putting Cohen's joints into specific positions. What are you looking for, and what are you feeling for?
So in this specific exercise, we're working on the concentric and eccentric phase of external rotation, which is basically the rotating out of the arm. And then when you think about the concentric phase, that's him pushing up against me, and the eccentric phase is him controlling it as we slowly lower the arm. This just kind of maintains tension on that the muscles of the posterior shoulder, just to basically increase the strength and stability. So my left hand there was on the back side of his shoulder, just kind of gauging, making sure we're activating the muscles that we want.
You also did something called the drop and catch exercise. What does the drop and catch exercise do for Cohen?
Yeah, so this is a little bit more dynamic activity. The idea is like there's an endurance component, so we typically do it for 30 plus seconds, and then it challenges our stability. So to sit there and do that exercise for 30 seconds to a minute, your shoulder is going to be burning. And then in this position here, we're just kind of changing the moment arm, kind of the position of the arm, just to stress the stability in a different plane of motion, different position.
And then it's off the table, and you have Cohen throwing into a trampoline and then catching the ball again. What does this piece of therapy do?
Yeah, so again, like our goal was to get him back into a dynamic activity associated with throwing. So here we're using a weighted ball to build up that load tolerance, get used to generating force. Basically everything that we did was to try to get back into the throwing motion. In order to do that, we want to kind of build up with some weight, and then in this position it's not quite the same stress as like a overhead motion like you would have throwing a baseball.
Now, if some of our viewers watching haven't been to physical therapy, it might surprise you to know that it doesn't just happen at the physical therapy appointment. The therapist has to trust their patient to do at-home exercises as well. Those are critical. Cohen, how diligent were you doing your at-home exercises?
I had to do it every day. I couldn't skip a day or it wouldn't go as fast. And I needed to get back faster for baseball season.
So you were diligent.
Yeah.
Jake, did you ever need to push or say anything to motivate Cohen?
There's plenty of times where you give a little jabs to keep things interesting and keep things engaged, but Cohen was very dedicated to what he wanted, and then Cohen's got a good support system, and his parents always help him keep him accountable, because it's tough when you're early on, young kid, still kind of learning some of that stuff, but he did best I've seen, so it was kudos to him.
Best you've seen, that's motivation. Angie, that must have felt nice to see your son so motivated and working so hard at his own recovery.
Yeah, he has certain goals he wants to make throughout high school and hopefully into college. So he's pretty motivated as far as getting back. And we knew watching him, and he still does it. He still has his arm routine that he has from Jake, and he still is working on that and keeping his arm strong. And it's showing. He's improving his speed all the time. So.
We love our viewer questions. You can use the chat on YouTube or Facebook, or you can email the Medical News Network. All the ways to connect with us are right there on your screen. Cohen, we saw you in uniform for Ellenwood High School just now. What year are you this year again?
Sophomore.
And do you think you're going to get time on the mound?
Yeah, I will a lot more this year.
A lot more. How long, Jake, does Cohen have to do the physical therapy at home?
So, I mean, the arm care program I gave him, that's something that I told him that he needs to do throughout his baseball career. So just maintaining the strength and stability of the shoulder, it's something that it's important to do as long as you're competing.
So for the rest of his life, and if he goes on to play pro, he's still going to have to take care of that shoulder. Speaking of your future, Cohen, you want to play college ball. Any thoughts on where you want to play?
No, I don't really have any thoughts on where I want to play. It's just whatever wants me, I guess.
Well, you have time. You have time. Yeah. Just starting your sophomore year. I always felt pressure when parents would ask, what do you want to do when you're only 15? You've got plenty of time. Jake, you played baseball yourself. Did you ever go through PT yourself for an injury?
Yeah, so I started out at a junior college in Iowa, at Iowa Western Community College, and then transferred to Western Kentucky University. My first summer at Western Kentucky University, I showed up early to work out with our strength coach and get prepared for our fall season. And last day of fall workouts, I kind of experienced something that was relatively similar to Cohen, throwing too much, too hard, a little too aggressive with the long toss. And mine wasn't necessarily little league or shoulder, but probably more likely, looking back at it, rotator cuff involvement. But that was a month-long rehab process, and yeah, it was tough to swallow, specifically being one of the new guys on campus at that time. So.
Yeah, that's very stressful. So many expectations. We do have some questions coming in from our viewers. Once again, before we get to Doc Hawk, we're going to go through these questions for our special guests here. And Stu has a question. He wants to know, how frustrating was it to not be able to play when you were injured? How did you handle that mentally?
It was very frustrating for me. I just went and watched my team whenever I wasn't out for baseball. I went to most of our summer league tournaments, and for the thumb, I mean, I was off over winter. I didn't play anything, so I just stayed home. I worked on my stuff at home.
Right. You just got to protect yourself. Get through it how you can. We have a question from Jill. Jill wants to know if the arm is getting even faster after injury with physical therapy. Would all athletes benefit from some kind of physical therapy, even the ones who aren't coming in visibly or saying that they're injured?
Yeah.
The exercises, you mean? Like,
yeah.
Do the exercises help? Yeah, I think they help a lot. I do the exercises he gave me over physical therapy still, like, every day. And they
Jake,
helped me with arm pain.
that's good as you continue your future. Jake, professionally, what do you think as a PT? Would you recommend this for all athletes to come in to see you?
Yeah, so I mean, specific, like, there's instances where we can be preventative, and it's always better to be proactive versus reactive. So, I mean, if anybody has any sort of questions on like how to progress through something or make sure they're doing specific exercises right, like that's what our rehab professionals are for. We're here to help everyone with whatever their goals are. In this specific case, we're talking athletics. So, yeah, I mean, that's what we're here for. So,
Alex wants to know, is part of Cohen's future, is there any long-term monitoring by a doctor that Cohen will need, or is it just keeping up with his physical therapy and his exercises at home?
So at this point, it would be just kind of keeping up with the strength, stability, and then just monitoring symptoms. So, I mean, you heard him earlier. He was saying that he's at 100%, so he's sitting at a good spot. We just want to continue to work on strength and stability of the shoulder, just to continue to progress. So.
Before we get today's takeaways from our guests, I want to remind everyone Dr. Hawkinson is here. We're going to get to your questions for him in a moment. We need to get Cohen to school on time. So, Jake, what do you want our viewers to know?
Big thing I would say is if you're experiencing something, don't wait. I mean, there's rehab professionals throughout the health system. Every one of us, or even our entire healthcare team, like, we're here to help the individuals. Cohen's a prime example of kind of showing the dedication that it takes to get back to the level that you want to be. And ultimately, that's what our team's here for, is just to help people like Cohen get back to what they want to do.
And Cohen, what would your message be to people who are watching this program?
You have to do what they tell you or it won't get better.
It's a great message.
Can't skip out.
Can't skip it. Angela?
The same. And it's find the good doctors and good physical therapists and listen to what they say. And we're lucky to, even in our small area, to have a couple good doctors to go to.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining our discussion. We really appreciate you sharing your journey. And Cohen, thanks for letting us sit in on physical therapy with you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now it's time to check in with Dr. Dana Hawkinson, the Medical Director of Infection Prevention and Control here at the health system. Dr. Hawkinson, we're at the height of a summer COVID wave. Do you think that's peaked?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are hoping it has, and this is just due to the data that we have had the last couple of weeks. Certainly, if we are looking at wastewater, which we have shown this graph before a couple times the last few weeks, with the wastewater graphs now, we are seeing that there is, or there has been, what we believe is a peak, and you can see there on the far right. In the middle is the national levels. Right below that in the Midwest, we can see in yellow. There are peaks to that just a couple weeks back, and those levels have started to decrease again. This is wastewater detection. Maybe a plateau, so we'll just have to see how the next round goes, the next week of data. We also have information from the CDC about emergency department visits and test positivity. And as far as emergency department visits, what we have seen the last couple weeks, and you can see that on the right, there is 2.5% of people going to the emergency department are going for evaluation for that. What we will say is that the last couple weeks, that number has slightly decreased, and so we are hoping that with the slight decrease in the number of people going to the emergency department for evaluation for respiratory symptoms or COVID, since we have seen a slight decrease in that over the last 2 weeks, hopefully that will continue to decrease. What does that mean? That yes, overall we do hope and believe that we have seen so far this most recent peak, and now as more schools are starting to get back into session, we will continue to see a decrease in the overall SARS-CoV-2 circulation or COVID-19 circulation in the community.
Last week, the FDA approved the new fall fall COVID vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna, and they're designed to target the KP.2 variant.
Yeah.
We keep hearing about new variants. If you get this vaccine, will it still protect against the other variants? Do they all exist at the same time?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So originally the FDA said we recommend using the JN1 variant for your formulation for the 2024-2025 COVID updated vaccine. They then later came back and said, well, now we recommend KP2. Both of those variants are an offshoot of the Omicron lineage, so they come from a similar, same family, but they differ mostly in what their spike protein looks like. So now the major or dominant variant circulating in the U.S. is the KP3. But to answer your question, yes, you will still get protection from this most updated booster or updated COVID vaccine. You will hopefully get protection even from getting infected, maybe for the first 3 or 4 weeks. We have seen with the variants as well as with the vaccines that soon after vaccination you do have some protection against infection. But remember, the vaccines are really there to help protect you against severe disease and hospitalization. So we do believe that even this updated vaccine will provide good protection against severe disease and hospitalization. So most of the variants, what they're looking at is the spike protein, and that changes quite a bit, and that's why you hear about all the immune evasion, and that deals with antibody immunity. The second part of main part of our immune system, again, is those T cells. And what we have seen throughout the variants is that T cell immunity remains conserved 80% or more. So that is how you are still getting that protection from severe disease and hospitalization. So the recommendation is, yes, everybody who's 6 months and over should be getting this new updated vaccine for the 2024-2025 respiratory viral season.
What if someone watching recently got COVID? How long do they wait before they get the new vaccine?
Yeah, and I think this has been consistent as well, even since last year we were saying with the new vaccines, if you had COVID recently, it is reasonable to wait 90 days or 3 months after your infection to get the updated vaccine. That infection that you did have will give your body a natural immune boost, so that therefore you can put off getting the updated vaccine for 90 days or 3 months.
Okay, 90 days or 3 months.
Yeah.
Any word on how soon the new vaccines will be ready for people to actually get them?
Yeah, so they were FDA approved last week. I have talked with our pharmacists here. We don't have them yet. No idea or time frame as of yet when they will be available here at the health system. We are hoping in the next couple of weeks, so we will keep you updated on that.
We have a question that came in from Stu. Stu wants to know, is there any reason not to get the flu and the COVID vaccines at the same time in the same appointment?
No, we certainly recommend getting them both at the same time if you are able to, because we never want to miss an opportunity to vaccinate. They have been shown to be safe when given together, and of course, they continue to be effective as well. So it is vitally important to be able to get them together if you can. However, we would also state that right now influenza activity in the United States is extremely low. Therefore, it is reasonable to wait if you know that you see your medical providers or can get in to see your medical providers or get in to a clinical pharmacy to get the influenza vaccine as influenza activity increases in the United States, because we know it typically goes from October through April. So you want to make sure you get that influenza vaccine, especially so you can have that immunity lasting you through the new year into those first couple months of 2025. But to answer your question, it is completely safe and effective to get both vaccines at once.
For final thoughts, Doc Hawk, you feeling optimistic as we head into the fall and winter?
I certainly am. We have the tools to protect us, especially those most vulnerable of severe disease, as we get into the respiratory viral season. We've talked about the influenza vaccines. Influenza vaccines now only have 3 components as opposed to 4. Why is that? Because one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that we saw that one of the influenza viruses that was circulating, that we had a component in the vaccine to, seemed to have just drop off the map and was no longer detected. So I think that is one of the silver linings. The influenza vaccine for this year will have 3 components. We know that the COVID vaccines, continue to help protect you against severe disease and hospitalization, especially for those most at risk. Again, for most people in the United States, the virus, the infection doesn't really matter, doesn't affect our daily lives, but there are still those populations that it continues to be a significant threat. Those are the people that are elderly, they have comorbid conditions like immunosuppression because they are on immunosuppressive drugs or they have cancer. Those people that have heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, lung disease, they continue to be at risk of severe disease and hospitalization. We know the vaccine can help protect against that, but even for healthy people, we know getting the vaccine can help reduce your chance of getting long COVID, which can affect multiple organ systems and can affect your daily life and is very impactful for that. And a new study recently came out also early on in the pandemic when they compared people who got vaccinated versus people who did not and then got infected. They also saw that those people who did not get vaccinated but had infection had slightly increased rates of mental illness like depression for a short period of time after that as well. So we know vaccination can help reduce your risk of a multitude of different problems. And the last one is RSV as well. We know that RSV vaccination is out there. It is recommended for those 60 and above. You should talk with your medical provider about getting that vaccine, so that will help reduce your chance of getting severe disease from that as well.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkinson,
Yeah.
and thank you so much for watching us this morning. We'll see you back here on Wednesday.
Coming up Wednesday on Open Mics with Dr. Stites. What started as a dream vacation in Jamaica for David Kimmer's anniversary turned into a fight for his life. I'm Jessica Lovell on the next Open Mics with Dr. Stites, the deadly infection that can challenge doctors. See how the team at the University of Kansas Health System brought David back from the brink. Wednesday at 8.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcast. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.